pride, beauty, and desire, a princess who wanted true love, but she rejected every prince in the kingdom. She claimed an unknown prince from a far kingdom. But when the guards were sent away and the night fell, the truth behind the handsome stranger was revealed. In the ancient and prosperous kingdom of Aiyetoro, where the red earth stained the feet of travelers and tall palm trees swayed under the golden sun, stood a royal palace so grand that visitors often stopped speaking the moment they saw it. Its walls were carved with ivory symbols of past victories, and its gates were plated with polished brass that shone like fire at sunset. This palace belonged to Oba Adeyemi, one of the richest and most respected kings across many neighboring lands. Yet for all his wealth, the king had only one child, Princess Zainab. Zainab was known far beyond Aiyetoro. Songs were sung about her beauty, her smooth dark skin, her calm regal posture, and the way her eyes carried both intelligence and pride. Servants whispered that she walked like someone who had never known hardship. From childhood, she had been given the best of everything: silks from the north, coral beads from the coast, and tutors who taught her poetry, history, and royal customs. But as the years passed, one trait grew stronger than all others. She became very selective and quietly, very proud. When Princess Zainab reached the age of marriage, the entire kingdom celebrated for 7 days. Drummers filled the courtyards. Dancers spun in bright fabrics. Messengers were sent across distant lands announcing that the princess would soon choose a husband. Suitors began arriving. The first was a powerful warrior prince. He brought ivory tusks and promised to expand Aiyetoro's army. Zainab rejected him. "He speaks too loudly," she said. Another prince arrived with chests of gold and rare gemstones. She rejected him. "He smiles without sincerity." A third came, young, educated, respectful. She rejected him too. "He bows, but I can see pride behind his eyes." Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. The palace gates never stopped opening. And still, she rejected them all. The people began whispering. Some said she was waiting for true love. Others said she believed no man was worthy. One evening, Oba Adeyemi called his daughter to the royal courtyard. "My child," he said gently, "a good heart is sometimes hidden in simple appearance." Zainab lifted her chin. "I will not marry a man who does not move my spirit the moment I see him." The king's heart grew heavy, because he had ruled long enough to know. Things that shine too quickly often hide darkness. That same night, far beyond the forests, beyond the hills where humans rarely walked, a devil spirit drifted between worlds. He fed on pride, on impatience, on careless choices. And he heard the whispers carried by the wind. A princess, who rejected every man. The spirit became curious, then amused, then hungry. "If her eyes choose without wisdom," he hissed softly, "then her eyes will lead her to me." Dark smoke twisted around him as he began to change form. Bones reshaped. Skin smoothed. Eyes glowed with false warmth. By dawn, the spirit had become the most handsome man any mortal had ever seen. And he began his journey to Aiyetoro. The day the stranger arrived, the palace guards felt something before they even saw him. The air grew strangely still. Even the birds stopped singing. Then he appeared at the gate, tall, elegant, dressed in royal fabric no one recognized. His skin seemed to glow under the sun, and his voice carried calm authority. "I have come," he said, "to seek the hand of Princess Zainab." Word spread through the palace like wildfire. When Zainab entered the courtyard and saw him, her breath caught in her chest. Her heart raced. For the first time since the suitors began arriving, she felt something powerful. "That is him," she whispered. The stranger bowed with perfect grace. "I come from a far kingdom beyond the hills," he said. But when the king asked which kingdom, his answer was smooth, yet empty. No one had heard of it. No guards followed him. No royal symbols marked his clothing. No gifts were presented. The elders exchanged worried looks. Something was wrong. Oba Adeyemi felt it deep in his bones. "My daughter," he said carefully, "a man must have roots. A kingdom. A people." But Zainab's voice hardened. You asked me to choose. I have chosen. Days of argument followed. The king delayed. The elders protested. Even the palace priest warned, some beauty is not from this world. But Zainab refused to eat. Refused to speak. Refused to see any other suitor. At last, worn down by fear of losing his daughter's trust, the king gave his blessing. The wedding was magnificent. Drums thundered through the city. Dancers spun like flames. The people celebrated, yet unease lingered in quiet corners. Because no one truly knew the man who had become their future prince. That night, as celebrations ended, Oba Adeyemi secretly called the chief guard. Follow them when they leave, the king ordered. Protect my daughter. And discover where this man truly comes from. The chief guard bowed. I will not fail you, my king. Beyond the palace walls, the stranger smiled to himself. He already knew. At dawn, Princess Zainab prepared to leave her childhood home. Servants wept quietly. The king held her longer than usual. Send word when you arrive, he said softly. The journey began through winding forest roads, with royal guards surrounding the royal carriage. For hours, the stranger said little. Then, as the forest grew thicker, he turned to Zainab. My queen, he said gently, there is no need for your father's guards to continue. Zainab frowned slightly. Before she could respond, the chief guard rode forward. Our orders are from the king. We must ensure the princess arrives safely. The stranger's smile did not change. My guards will protect us. The chief guard looked around. There are no guards here. The stranger slowly raised his hand. The air grew cold. Wind rushed through the trees. And from the shadows, they appeared. A massive army of towering warriors in dark armor, their eyes glowing faintly, their steps completely silent. Even the horses panicked. The royal guards froze in shock. Never had they seen such soldiers. The chief guard's hand tightened on his spear. Something inside him screamed that this was wrong. We still must continue, he insisted. But Zainab, trusting her husband, spoke firmly. Can you not see? These guards are stronger. Return to my father and tell him I am safe. The chief guard hesitated. Every instinct told him to refuse. But he could not disobey the princess. Reluctantly, he signaled the retreat. As they rode away, many guards looked back uneasy, afraid. Once they were gone, the dark army moved silently behind the carriage. The stranger's smile slowly widened. Night fell before they reached any sign of a kingdom. The forest thickened, trees closing in like silent witnesses. The air felt heavy, as though the land itself was holding its breath. At last, they arrived at a grand but isolated chamber house hidden deep within the forest. Its walls were tall and dark, carved with strange patterns Zainab had never seen before. Tall candle stands burned with blue flames, flickering without wind. No servants welcomed them. No music played. No voices echoed. For the first time since meeting the stranger, a quiet unease settled in Zainab's chest. Where are your people? She asked softly, trying to keep her voice steady. They will greet you soon, he replied, his tone calm, almost soothing. Yet his eyes lingered on her in a way that made her shiver. The doors closed behind them with a deep, hollow sound. Zainab noticed how silent everything was, too silent. Even the night insects were gone. She told herself she was tired. That fear was only the result of a long journey. Exhaustion eventually pulled her into sleep. But it was not peaceful. In the middle of the night, she woke suddenly. The air was cold. Very cold. Then she heard it. A sharp cracking sound, like bones snapping. Slow, heavy breathing filled the chamber. A low, wet growl crept through the darkness. Her heart began to pound. Slowly, she turned. The handsome face that had once made her heart race was changing. Skin shriveled like burnt paper. The smooth jaw twisted unnaturally. His glowing eyes sank deep into dark, hollow pits. Teeth stretched into long, jagged fangs. Before her stood a hideous spirit, towering and terrifying. She tried to scream, but her voice failed her. I came, the creature growled, his voice echoing unnaturally, because pride blinds the wise. Tears filled her eyes as fear gripped her body. You chose beauty without truth. You trusted your eyes more than wisdom. Her legs weakened, and she fell from the bed onto the cold floor. In that moment of terror, memories flooded her mind, her father's warnings, the elders' uneasy faces, her grandmother's quiet voice from childhood. When darkness comes, pray. With trembling hands, Zainab pressed her forehead to the floor. She prayed. At first, her voice shook. Words stumbled out between sobs. But she did not stop. As her prayer grew stronger, the blue flames in the chamber flickered violently. A soft light began to push back the darkness. The spirit screamed. He staggered backward, shielding his face as if burned. Stop, he roared. But she prayed louder. The light filled the chamber, warm and powerful. The walls shook. The candles burst into bright white flames. With one final, furious scream, the devil dissolved into thick black smoke, sucked into the shadows from which he came. Silence followed. The chamber stood empty. Zainab collapsed onto the floor, shaking. Not just from fear, but from shame. Tears streamed down her face as understanding settled in her heart. She had almost lost everything, not because of love, but because of pride. At sunrise, the forest echoed with distant voices and the sound of hurried footsteps. The chief guard had returned, unable to ignore the deep unease that had followed him through the night. He had convinced the king to send a search party before it was too late. They found the princess alone in the strange chamber house. The blue flames were gone. The air felt normal again. But Princess Zainab was no longer the same. Her posture was quieter. Her eyes, once filled with certainty and pride, now carried humility and gratitude. When she saw the chief guard, tears slipped down her cheeks. You were right to be cautious, she whispered. He bowed deeply, relief flooding his face. Back in Aiyetoro, the king ran toward her the moment her carriage entered the palace gates. Royal dignity vanished. He held his daughter tightly, as if afraid she might disappear again. I almost lost you, he said, his voice breaking. I almost lost myself, Zainab replied softly. In the months that followed, the entire kingdom noticed the change. The princess who once judged quickly now listened patiently. She walked among market women and greeted elders with respect. She spoke kindly to servants whose names she had never cared to learn before. Pride had been replaced with understanding. One evening, during a modest royal gathering, a familiar figure entered the courtyard. A quiet prince from a neighboring kingdom, one not known for great wealth, but for peace and good leadership. He had once come to seek her hand. She had rejected him for being too simple. Now she watched him carefully. He greeted elders first. He thanked the servants who offered him water. He spoke gently, never trying to impress anyone. There was no performance in him, only sincerity. Later, he approached her with respectful distance. I hope your journey brought you wisdom, princess, he said. Zainab lowered her gaze, something she had rarely done before. It did, she answered. And it showed me the value of hearts I once ignored. This time, she did not rush. She spoke with him over many days. She listened, observed, learned who he truly was. And slowly, without pride, without pressure, she chose him. Their wedding was not the loudest celebration the kingdom had ever seen, but it was filled with genuine joy. Laughter came easily. Peace settled over the palace like gentle rain. Years later, people would say Queen Zainab ruled with compassion because she had once walked too close to darkness and returned with wisdom. And never again did she judge a soul by appearance alone.
Bye guys, thanks for watching and staying with us to the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. See you next time.